and welcome to Atop the Fourth Wall, where bad comics burn. Patreon-sponsored review time again, the first of a long string of them, unless I interrupt it with some live show adaptations that I don't announce at the end of videos. Accept it. Until then, though, today we're talking about a good comic, and one that's only grown more popular thanks to its animated series, Invincible. Invincible comes to us from Image Comics via The Walking Dead creator Robert Kirkman. And it's important to remember, especially in regards to the company, that when I disparage Image, it's pretty much only focused on the company's beginnings. The early 90s extreme stuff that was mostly in the Liefeld playbook. Exaggerated proportions, lazy character design, a severe lack of story, and pitiful world building. But by 2003, when Invincible was made, the company had pretty much turned itself around and long abandoned such things. And for an indie superhero book not part of the big two, Invincible very impressively managed to last 15 years and 144 issues, not including spin-offs and crossovers and miniseries and whatnot. And I've never really read it. Yeah, superheroes might be my bread and butter, but I admit I'm more of a big two guy, and even then, more DC than Marvel. As a result, Invincible just never really appealed to me. I learned of stuff overall, some big twists and several controversial areas, but for the most part, it was just never on my radar. But yeah, speaking of big twists, that brings us to today's review. Volume 3, where there is a major revelation in this one. So just telling you ahead of time, there be spoilers here if you intend to check out the book for yourself. Otherwise, quick sum up to get you up to speed. Mark Grayson is a teenager whose father is an alien and a superhero known as Omni-Man. When Mark began displaying superpowers for himself, he took on the identity of Invincible and started dating another teen superheroine named Atom Eve. In issue 7, Omni-Man murders the Guardians of the Globe, the premier superhero team of this universe, for reasons that will be revealed in this book. There are other bits and pieces, but that's the general gist of it. So let's dig into Volume 3 of Invincible, Perfect Strangers, and see what the deal is.
Welcome to Atop the Fourth Wall, where bad comics burn. Linkara's gonna teach you all a lesson you won't learn. What's with these awkward subjects? What's all this art so rubbish? To anyone who's had a bad comic published, it could be your turn. Linkara, he is a man who punch sporadically or grouch. Linkara, he has his own spaceship, but he's always on his couch. Linkara, ghosts, gods, a universe in flux. Linkara, this comic sucks. Linkara.
My scans are from a trade, so no looking at the covers. We open in space for a Star Trek The Next Generation homage/parody, where the crew of a spaceship are trying to keep themselves from falling into a sun. Their Data equivalent, Download. So if he's Data, that means he has an evil twin. Is he named Upload here? Comes up with a complicated plan to save themselves. Sir, if I can configure the deflector array to emit multiple tractor beams, it may be possible to slingshot ourselves away from the star by using the fragmented remains of the Torellian vessel.
Using multimodal reflection sorting.
The plan itself is not technobabble, but the fact that he says he's using the deflector to emit tractor beams is. The deflector array is what keeps tiny objects from hitting the ship while they're flying and putting holes in them. The tractor beam pulls objects towards them and has nothing to do with the deflector. You might say that this is me being pedantic about Star Trek stuff. I say, wow, this is your first video of mine you're watching, eh? However, the plan becomes unnecessary because a pink alien is outside that just shoves their ship away from the sun. Amateurs. Only a professional like me knows to get out and push. The being is telepathic, and no, having not read the issues before this, I don't know his name yet, but I know he appeared before, and tells them that he appreciates the thanks, but he needs to get to Earth. Where the hell is Earth? Don't sweat it. I hear that planet's gonna disappear when they put that hyperspace bypass in. We cut to wherever the hell Earth is, where Mark is saying goodbye to his friends after having them over to celebrate his birthday by watching zombie movies all day. His parents greet him, and his father suggests that there's still one more they can watch. Day of the Dead, which just makes me wonder why it wasn't part of the regular rotation of zombie movies they had already watched that day, because Day of the Dead is awesome. Hey, video essayist YouTubers, why haven't I seen one of you guys looking at toxic masculinity in that movie? It's like dripping in the movie's themes, and I'm some dumbass who makes boner jokes at comic books, so I need one of you to do it. We cut from that idyllic scene to the Pentagon, whose sign leaves something to be desired. Yes, the parking in rear part is hilarious, of course, but man, there's so much wasted space on that thing. Hell, apparently in the cartoon it's worse because they don't even have the Department of Defense logo on there. Anyway, the government is talking to a superhero named Robot. Robot was apparently up for membership in the Guardians of the Globe, and with all of them dead, it's been decided that while the Guardians were privately funded and operated before, it might be better for the government to be more hands-on with this team. As such, they're asking Robot to lead and form the new team, which he graciously accepts. On to Omni-Man. He's on a mountain and trying to practice needing to have an important discussion with Mark.
Son, we need to talk.
Mark, we need to talk. You see, when a man and woman love each other very much, they may need to murder some people. He suddenly gets an emergency call and flies off, bringing us over to Mark and his friend Samantha, who's also the teen superheroine Adam Eve. After school, the two decide to do some patrolling, and we get a brief cutaway to Mark's mother calling a clothing store guy who knows their secret, asking advice about washing her son's costume because she hasn't done it very often. Yeah, there are cases where for a Patreon-sponsored review, I'll look at what came before, but I'm far enough behind on the schedule that I just wanted to jump right into it. Good news is that Invincible is so well written that it was relatively simple for me to jump into it even 9 issues in. The two young heroes take down a very classic DC/Marvel kind of villain. The reptile-themed terrorist cult. Serpent Society, Cobra. Yeah, DC has their own Cobra, separate from G.I. Joe's Cobra, just FYI. It's spelled with a K because poor literacy makes things copyrightable. But in this case, it's the Lizard League, and the two are able to take them down. As the villains are being hauled off, Invincible comments to Eve that they make a great team, but are interrupted by Robot showing up on a hoverbike. He tells them how he'd like the two to try out for the Guardians, but Mark turns him down since he's too busy with school. He does say that he'd like to check out who's trying out, but Eve suddenly gets cold and doesn't really give an answer other than, "I have somewhere to be," as if annoyed by Mark's refusal to join or something. Word got around about the open tryouts, which are being held in a warehouse. "We're going to be paying well, and apparently word spreads fast in our circle." See, he says they'll pay well, but you know they'll go for the lowest bidders first. Invincible runs into another hero, Rex, who apparently did something bad to Eve, and he is noticeably mad at him, but doesn't cause a scene. He also doesn't really endear himself to me as a new reader when he boasts to the crowd outside that he totally aced the tryout. Rex spots a little girl in the crowd and speaks condescendingly to her. She reveals herself to be a heroine named Monster Girl, who transforms into some kind of orc and starts beating the crap out of Rex. Invincible intervenes and she transforms back, admitting that she got carried away, apologizing to Rex. She also seems to be older than she looks, since she asks if anyone has a cigarette. "Thanks, man. Just because I'm pissed off at you for what you did to Eve doesn't mean I want to see you dead. That doesn't mean I'm speaking to you either. I mean, I am okay with you getting the crap kicked out of you, just not dead." Honestly, points to Mark for actually showing a lot of maturity in these scenes. You'd expect a teen superhero to be getting into a direct argument or leading the charge on beating him up. After checking in with Robot, we soon get the announcement for the lineup. Honestly, kind of shocked he's making the announcement so quickly and not, waiting a couple of days to review what they've got and do background checks. But I suppose if he is a robot, he probably has access to this kind of info ahead of time. "There are certainly many of you who had conflicting powers that would have made your inclusion on the team redundant. And while you were qualified, we went with someone with more experience who had similar powers. A shockingly large percentage of you had interpretive dance in your power sets, which, while impressive, we only need one of. Others, quite frankly, were nowhere near qualified and shouldn't have been allowed to waste my time. You know who you are. I mean, seriously, Captain Tax Time, come on." Now, AAU Superstar, on the other hand, he announces the lineup, which includes both Monster Girl and Rex, surprisingly enough. Robot once again floats the open offer to join, but Invincible turns him down again. Later, Omni-Man is away while Mark and his mom have dinner, and we learn that Mark is having a girl, Amber, over to study, which of course his mom knows is code for make out with. And we see that proven true as Eve actually stops by to come see Mark, but spots the two kissing and flies away in sadness. Over Over to a condemned warehouse, two villains, one of whom is apparently a clone of the other, but they're not sure which is which, are attempting to revive the Immortal, one of the former heroes of the Guardians who got decapitated. They've reattached his head and have put a bunch of control devices on him to try to mind control him once he's revived, but once he awakens, he just breaks free and flies off, roaring in anger, ending our first issue.
The control beacons didn't work.
I told you we should have waited for the patch to download. The issue begins with Invincible fighting a villain named Doc Seismic near Mount Rushmore. He fails to capture the guy, but was able to save the lives of some tourists before flying off. That night, his dad meets him in the kitchen as he gets a drink and says he needs to talk to Mark, but Mark just assumes he wants to give the sex talk and says he's not interested in this conversation. The next day at school, Mark's friend pokes him about his relationship before inviting him out to a burger joint after class. Mark says sure, but needs to hit up the comic book store first, inviting his friend to come.
Me? Go into a comic shop? No way. I'm already enough of a geek without being seen in a comic shop.
Yeah, only dorks and geeks are into comic books. Am I right? I am right. I know what I am. Omni-Man is being run ragged, picking up the slack of the new Guardians of the Globe, and it takes a moment for him to respond to his wife saying that she loves him. We get two one-page scenes that we can skim over because they're not really relevant here. One where demon detective Damian Darkblood comes in to re-examine the crime scene at the Guardians of the Globe murder, and another where Black Samson, one of the new Guardians, checks in with Sanford, who I presume to be the Jarvis of the former Guardians, who is now confined to a cell for something that happened before. Samson tells him that he's trying to use his influence to get Sanford counseling and not incarceration. The comic, at least in the ones I've read, is very good about advancing subplots in brief one-page bits without bogging down the pacing. And hell, even if I don't know all the context, it provides enough that I can get the gist of what's going on. Mark arrives at the mall where the comic store is to discover a line outside. Apparently, the creator of his favorite comic, Science Dog, is doing a signing. He very quickly uses his super speed to return home and grab a box full of books he'd like signed. Hi, Mr. Schaff. It's great to meet you. I brought a lot of stuff. You don't have to sign it all if you don't want to.
Lay it on me, kiddo. You paid hard-earned money for the stuff. The least I could do is deface it with my illegible scribble.
Okay, but it looks like he's carrying a short box, which can hold like 150 comics, if not more. It's okay to keep things minimal, especially since, you know, there's a line behind him and all. There's a bit of meta-commentary and joking, with the creator admitting that they'll reuse art to save time with like dramatic pauses that are demonstrated to us. Meanwhile, Omni-Man stops a giant monster and saves a bunch of people, only for the Immortal to suddenly show up and tackle him, demanding to know why he murdered the Guardians. Their fight takes to the air and out of earshot as Mark spots a reporter talking about the sudden attack on a news report in the comic shop. Mark's mother sees the same report. It is unclear whether or not this is the Immortal. He wouldn't be the first hero to return from the dead, but experts are still skeptical. Some experts claim that this could just be a reboot and not actually a return from the dead kind of thing. The Immortal keeps wanting to know why Omni-Man killed them, and Omni-Man screams back that he killed him once and he can do it again. Just as Invincible arrives to overhear this, and see his father rip the Immortal in half. Okay, I know he keeps coming back and all, but I feel like the fact that he can temporarily die makes the Immortal name a little misleading.
Son, we need to talk.
We need to teach your mother the proper way to wash blood out of our costumes. It's going to be kind of important in the future and, well, no time like the present. Thus begins Chapter 3 and a massive exposition dump. I'll sum up as best as I can. Omni-Man does indeed come from the planet Viltrum, as he had previously said, but he lied about his race. The Viltrumites waged a massive civil war in their world to eliminate the weak from our planet. Half the population was culled, and they unanimously voted to expand their new order throughout the galaxy as conquerors. They also agreed that all the men should have a Tom Selleck mustache, I guess. They began moving through the galaxy, either finding willing subjects to their rule or worlds to violently take over. The Conquered were enlisted to help further the campaign, and by the time Omni-Man was born, the Empire was long established and joining the world-conquering forces was a popular profession. Omni-Man rose through the ranks and he excelled at the whole violent conquest thing. But the thing is that it's a numbers game. The more you conquer, the less forces you have to conquer things, so with their forces stretched thin, the expansion slowed and stopped. And so, a new method was devised for a slower conquest. Leading members of their group would be sent to worlds to survey and weaken them over time. Omni-Man came to Earth with the goal of living here for 500 years, learn everything there was to learn about this planet and its defenses, as well as keep them from developing defenses that could stop them, and eventually bring the planet into the Viltrum Empire. Earth, however, was of course very susceptible to attack and conquest by other forces, so Omni-Man took it upon himself to protect the world that the Viltrumites had laid claim to. He got together with Mark's mother and over time learned to actually like living on Earth, falling for Mark's mother and falling for him too. He did consider turning his back on his duties, hoping that Mark's perspective of growing up on Earth as a human would provide a unique perspective to his people, but he knew it couldn't last and that he'd eventually have to reveal the truth when Mark started developing superpowers. So he took his first step in preparing the planet by murdering the Guardians of the Globe. And now it's time for you to join me and help me to prepare this planet for its imminent takeover at the hands of our people. This admittedly might get in the way of prom night, but I think we can split the difference there. He tries to further convince Mark. Because of their long lifespan, that they can live for thousands of years, to him, his wife is little more than a pet, and Viltrumite DNA is so powerful that he's definitely more Viltrumite than human. Everything around him is going to die over time, and human beings are beneath them. Naturally, this is not at all a convincing argument for Mark, who promises to defend Earth and prepares to fight his father, bringing us to the next issue, and a fight scene that lasts the entire issue. They are smashing into buildings, and Mark is unfortunately just completely outclassed. He gets in a few decent hits, but this is not a battle he can win with punches. He keeps trying to convince his father that he's lying, that he does care about his mom and humanity, all the while Omni-Man denying that humanity or his mother mean anything to him. And yeah, it is a violent fight. Yeah, fair warning, Invincible may, in a lot of its run, offer traditional superhero antics, but it also offers a lot of violence, maiming, and adult situations. It does not shy away from the fact that fights can get very bloody, even against a teenage boy. For those who are fans of the TV show, the comic does not actually contain the mimetic moment of, "Think, Mark!" The spirit is certainly there as Omni-Man demands to know why his son keeps resisting, especially since in 500 years, everyone he knows and loves will be dead, and this civilization will fall. He asks what Mark will have after 500 years.
You, Dad. I'd still have you. And your punches to my face still, I guess.
Omni-Man prepares to punch him one last time as he lies bleeding on the ground, but he suddenly hesitates and then flies off into space with tears in his eyes, ending the issue. Yeah, only a short look at that issue, but that's because there isn't much to say about it. Violence, a son refusing to follow in his dad's line of work, and said dad reacting badly to that news. That brings us to the final issue we'll be looking at, the aftermath of it all. Invincible's badly beaten body is recovered by the government as the news has footage of the two fighting. The government agent who had Robot reform the Guardians of the Globe, named Cecil Stedman, greets Mark as he awakens. He explains that he's been unconscious for 2 weeks and he should be fully healed in a couple days. Further, that he was the one who was constantly giving Omni-Man assignments to help save the world. He wants to talk to Mark about what happened, but he's self-aware enough to spot that Mark is really not up for that and excuses himself. After a brief check-in with Mark's friends, who discover that they both know his secret, and are of course worried about him, Cecil meets with Mark's mother.
I understand that Nolan was responsible for the family finances, and that you have no income whatsoever without him. And, well, I do work for the government, so just to warn you, taxes are gonna suck this year, sorry.
No, he's actually explaining to her that she and Mark are gonna get taken care of. Omni-Man's secret identity of Nolan Grayson is being given a cover story of dying in a car crash to help preserve said secret identity for the two. Nolan Grayson was also a best-selling author, so with his death, his books are suddenly in very high demand, providing income for the two for the rest of their lives. Hell, they've even got a hologram of her doing interviews with the press and attending a fake funeral so as to ensure she doesn't have to deal with all that in the wake of all this crap, and the two can resume their lives as best as they can. She wants to know why he's doing all this.
Because I feel responsible for your husband's actions. He was doing all this right under my nose, and I never saw it. I wouldn't be able to live with myself if I didn't do everything in my power to make things as right as they can be.
This is how you know this is a work of fiction. The government actually feeling guilty about a mistake it made and trying to rectify it.
And my power is vast. You know those weird laws like shrimp aren't allowed to wear pants on Sundays or whatever? Yeah, that's me. I get drunk sometimes and propose those for a laugh and it happens.
Adam Eve goes to see Robot in the Guardians of the Globe temporary headquarters, asking him to check in with his government contacts to look into whether Invincible is okay, which he agrees to. And he does just that, allowing the artist to reuse the shot of the Pentagon with the parking in rear sign. See, it all comes around. That meta commentary from the Science Dog creator was right. His government liaison says that, yep, Invincible is okay, just injured in the fight, and they're taking care of him. However, the liaison explains that the government isn't happy with the hand-picked Guardians of the Globe, that their response time is slow, and that while they haven't outright failed the mission yet, they're not happy with how it's working. So they haven't actually done anything wrong, but they're mad about them anyway?
I'm the government, I'm the government, I'm the reason nothing works.
Cecil talks to Mark again as he finishes recovering, explaining that the fight was of course witnessed by everybody and that thousands are dead from the brawl, though nobody knows why it happened. Just Cecil, who was able to overhear their conversation from Omni-Man's earpiece. He leads Mark into a bright white room, explaining that the conversation was recorded and Mark's mom listened to it. Mark's pissed about that given some of the stuff his father said, but Cecil says it was for the best that she knew the truth and it spared him from having to explain it to her. Well, you see, Mom, Dad went to go live on a farm where he'll be much happier? He shows Mark that the White Room isn't actually white. The water supply in America is laced with a chemical that inhibits the eye from seeing certain frequencies of light, and when the lights are turned off in the room, she can see a massive hidden lab complex. Cecil explains that he's going to get a free ride through college, full scholarship and all, but that part has a catch. Omni-Man, regardless of his motives, helped save many, many lives while working for them. He's flown past their sensors in the solar system, so he's gone, and they don't know if he's coming back. As such, they're recruiting Mark to be his replacement. Since this is going to allow Mark to be a superhero anyway, he agrees and is taken to be fitted with an earpiece. After Eve informs Mark's friend that he's okay, Mark and his mom return home. She goes off to bed while Mark gets contacted by Cecil. What do we have, Cecil?
First off, never say my name.
Okay, what have you got for me, Lumpy? After instructing him that he should never activate the earpiece until he's in full costume, Cecil informs him that an alien he had met once in a previous issue is returning to Earth, and he should go meet him before he arrives. Said alien turns out to be the one from the beginning of the trade, named Alan. I looked it up. He explains to Invincible that he came back to Earth to warn him that a Viltrumite was on Earth, and Invincible sits him down on the moon to explain recent events. Alan says this is unusual. A Viltrumite never abandons his post like Omni-Man has, his own species having been conquered by the Viltrumites hundreds of years ago. He's a part of the Coalition of Planets, an interplanetary force that's starting to work to counter the Viltrumites, but even a single one is so powerful that they're considered nigh unstoppable. Still, something like this, both Invincible himself holding no allegiance to the Viltrumites and Omni-Man abandoning his post, might be useful to them in the coming war. Invincible says he's happy to help since he's not exactly going to greet the invasion with open arms. And so our comic ends with Alan asking what he's going to do in the meantime. And Invincible just says, finish high school. Probably the right call. I mean, how are you going to stand up to alien supermen if you can't write a book report on The Great Gatsby? Anyway, this comic is great. Oh my god, such a controversial and out there opinion. It's hard to call these revelations a twist, because of course Omni-Man's murder of the Global Guardians is more of the twist, which we didn't see here. Instead, the significance of this shows how Invincible is a book that isn't afraid of shifting tone around. We have standard superhero fare, followed by teen romance, followed by meta humor, and then followed by violent upheaval of the status quo, with indeed an emphasis on violent. Even putting aside the physical harm done to Invincible, the collateral damage of the brief superhero brawl resulted in thousands of deaths, a reminder just how bad such a fight could be in a populated area. The characters are rich and interesting, showing plenty of layers and facets to them even if we only see some of them for brief snippets. Mark in this story is forced to grow up a little as a result of these revelations about his heritage, but in turn we saw how mature he was to begin with and how he handled complex situations, and continued to fight against his father even when it was clear he had no chance against him, never backing down or giving in to his pain or fear. I mean, parents can already be very intimidating to their kids, but now factor in how your dad is the most powerful being on the planet. But Mark never gave in nor humored his father's plans for conquest. Invincible is just such a likable protagonist here, and I'm sure there's nothing else horrible that is going to happen to him or his life in the next 100 or so issues. The book is good. I recommend it. Contain your shocked expressions. Next time, assuming we don't break for another live show adaptation, we'll be doing a video game review. And hey, if you thought I was giving some far-out opinions about the critically acclaimed, hugely popular comic series here, just wait until I start talking about Metal Gear Solid. Wouldn't it be hilarious if it turned out that Omni-Man didn't stop for the love of his son, but instead remembered that we produce Day of the Dead and thus our culture is worth saving?
Hello, my friends. Please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell for notifications on new video releases. If you'd like to support future videos, you can check out my Patreon, buy merch from the store, NV link in the description, or check out the t-shirts available from Teespring. Thanks for watching.